Hi. Today, I wanted to talk about what happens once you've accepted your diagnosis, which um, there's kind of different phases. When you first find out what's going on, there's usually a period where it's just like a huge sense of relief that it's almost like thank goodness that there's an explanation for what's going on. It's the time when you're sort of exploring, maybe why you're watching this video, um, what it's like to have avoidant personality disorder, what does it mean, how does it apply in your life, etc. And that's sort of like almost a euphoric period, relatively. Um, and then another really common um, period that people go through is like a mourning type period, because even though maybe you've been burdened, forced to have goals, desires, by people in your life and society, and pressures and stuff like that, to have certain things, and obviously they're not really going to be a good match for you. Um, but you've had these goals for your entire life. You sort of had it dictated to you that this is what your life should be, this is what it should look like, etc. And then that is no longer, like, you're aware that it's no longer in reach to you the way it was for other people and the way that you just assumed was going to happen for you. And so that it's just this big mourning time when you're getting over the idea that this, that, and the other that you thought maybe would be a part of your life, definitely not the way that you're seeing it. And of course, everybody jumps to the, like, marriage type of thing. There's a lot of people that have avoidant personality disorder that are married. They don't necessarily have the best relationships, but there's a lot of them that are married. They've actually, I'm pretty sure it's the number one group, um, as far as everything, as far as like designating by mental health issues, designating by job, designating by age, designating by sex and gender, everything. Avoidant personality disorder is number one as far as, once they get married, they stay married forever, mostly because they don't have the self-esteem to get out of a bad marriage, and they also think this is the best that they're going to have, so they just stick with it. Okay, so that's really optimistic, but yes, a lot of them do get married, um, and some get, have really good relationships too, um, if they work on themselves before they jump into a marriage. But so there's nothing saying that you can't have a relationship, you can't get married, etc. Um, but it's not going to be the same thing that you've seen a lot of other people go through. Um, and you mourn that. So that's a period that people with avoidant personality disorder usually go through. And then there's also a period where, nobody talks about it, but most people, well, okay, there are the self-diagnosed that came across the definition on Google, and those people actually, most of them don't actually have avoidant personality disorder, which is great. They have something else, usually depression. They're like, I avoid people, therefore I have avoidant personality disorder. And that's not true. People with avoidant personality disorder really want to have people in their life and can't. They have really hard problems trusting people. They have a really hard problem believing they're worthy of having people in their life. Um, Anyway, so I don't think that the people who have self-diagnosed maybe go through it as much as other people who are absolutely, unfortunately, definitely having the personality disorder, like the full-blown personality disorder, which is that almost all of them fight it. And it's usually a short period. The most visible description of this is actually, and you've heard this before from me, I'm sure. The people who get borderline personality disorder and fight that by saying, "No, I'm actually avoidant," because they don't want the diagnosis. I mean, there is a period, like I said, there's this initial euphoria of, "Yay, I have a name for what's been going on," but then you do the research and you find out really what that entails and how much your life is going to be affected and limited by it, and you're like, no, I really, no, are you sure it's nothing else? And they really fight it, and usually they resist that. That actually describes them, and that's actually not usually a very long period, but it is another stage that people sort of have to get through, the fighting, the definition, fighting and saying, "Oh well, now I'm be different. I'm be different." hmm Um, and then you just accept it, and you're like, "Okay, this is what I got. It's actually not something that I have to change. It's not something I can change. It's not something I really need to be ashamed of, even though you will be ashamed for it. But eventually, you'll get to the point where you're not going to be ashamed of it." Um, and it's just like, "Okay, this is my life. All right, and then what?" So you've gotten to the point where you've had the diagnosis and you accept it. You're not fighting it. You're not in intense mourning of this life that you used to think that you wanted to have, even though it was so stressful even thinking about it. Okay, what's next? Because here's the thing. Once you accept that you are avoidant, that you have avoidant personality disorder, you're actually going to free up a lot of time in your life. You're going to free up a lot of the stress that you were under. It's just, it's going to change. It's going to be different, but it's not going to be the same. You're going to have a lot of time where you were trying to psych yourself up to having relationships, where you were trying to force yourself to get out there and have relationships with people, where you were then, you know, beating yourself up because it wasn't working right, that you were trying so hard to analyze what you were doing wrong, that you were, you know, chastising yourself, that you're spending a lot of time ruminating about all these errors that you made in your life, etc. Um, that's going to end. Hair is nuts. I had it in a ponytail. Sorry. Okay, let me stop looking at my crazy hair. Uh, anyway, um, yeah, all that time that you were spending um, harassing yourself about why don't you have this kind of relationship that you're supposed to have, that's going to go away. And the other thing that's going to go away that's going to be really good for you is that you're going to stop tolerating people who are not, I really need to stop. People who are not basically doing you good. Now, I mean, it's almost impossible to, if it was your, you know, family that was the trigger that caused the caused you to get pushed into having avoidant personality disorder. Because again, you need to have a genetic predisposition and a trigger. You need to have abuse in your life, unfortunately, to become avoidant. And then it's all these personality traits come to the forefront, which are a response to abuse and a self-protection. If you don't need to self-protect, you will not need to have all these traits come as strongly as they have. Okay. If it is your family of origin, there's a lot of people that will cut them out of there. I mean, I had in my previous incarnation, I had cut out all of my immediate family before I had the diagnosis. At one time or another, they were gone because they were just menaces in my life. And then my parents have both died, and my sister lives really close, actually within an hour drive from where I live. And I've seen her, I think it's been about a year since I've seen her. My son, who is probably really, truly my best friend, let's be real. He's certainly my best friend that I actually hang out with, like in real life on a regular basis, even though it's only like every other week or something like that. Still, I mean, there have been periods where I had to have a break from him too. Yeah, you will start getting those people, and then if it's not a family person that you've actually got a legal bond with, friends who are actually people who suck, you're going to get rid of all them too, and you're going to have all that time. That's a lot of time. So now that I've prefaced this, what do you do? Well, first of all, you probably have to work. And the thing is, if you have avoidant personality disorder, you are probably introverted. I have never met an extroverted person with avoidant personality disorder, but I think they must exist, or they exist in a different way, or something like that. Or maybe they were a little bit more gregarious, and so they didn't quite accept the abuse and stuck up for themselves when they were younger, and they didn't actually get to the point of being clinically diagnosed. They might have traits, but don't actually have avoidant personality disorder. But I think there are, I mean, why wouldn't there be extroverted people that have the same makeup? I mean, probably, but most people are introverted. I actually think I'm ambivert, but I hate that. I don't want to be around people. Um, so I get a job where I interact with people just enough that I don't need anybody else in my life. Anyway, but yeah, you will have to work, and probably the less you work, the better. If you can work part-time, um, if you can work a schedule where you take a job and then you have a month or two off and then take another job, that's the sort of thing. If you can pull that off, I highly suggest it. I also suggest that you don't just work at home, that you get a job somewhere else. And also, work does not necessarily mean you need to get paid, right? So you could volunteer. The thing is that it will take somebody with avoidant personality disorder a lot more of their time and mental resources to recover from working. So it's sort of like having a really long commute. Is you've got to prep yourself before you go to work, and then you got to prep yourself after you come back. You need to take a lot of time, and you need to have a safe space to do that. Like, I don't know, like it's usually like their bedroom that and sometimes they have multiple spaces in the house that an avoidant person will retreat from the universe and go. I mean, that is kind of introverted also, but I mean, an extreme version where you've got your safe space. You're going to spend a lot of time there. So that's one of the things that you can do is work and recover from work and prepare for work. Um, and then I think this is probably one of the most positive things about people with avoidant personality disorder. I have yet to meet one that didn't have a major hobby or multiple hobbies. Um, if you actually see this YouTube channel, then yeah, I keep putting my silly hobbies videos on it. Um, I personally like things that have a distinct end. I like that. I like completion and finishing. I do things that I'm not good at. I do things I can improve a little bit at. Um, and I do really things that I can do singularly on my own. But yeah, hobbies are good. And because you know what? You're probably like, hobbies. And I know people who have hobbies. The general populace, once upon a time, everybody, and like think of the 1950s. This was like an ideal time in U.S. politics. Anyway, I know in the rest of the country, in the world, there were some really negative places. But if you think the 1950s in the U.S., everybody had hobbies. Everybody had hobbies. You know, there was always a workshop for the guys, and you know, kids were on their bikes. And I mean, I know it's idealized and all this other stuff, but that was part of the idealized nature of it, was that people did things like hobbies. Guess what? People with avoidant personality disorder kind of living the life like that. But yeah, find hobbies, fill it with hobbies. um, I'm a big proponent of volunteering. I already said that. um, and even if you just do it, you know, once a year, maybe there's one thing that you have a year, and then see, that's enough, because then you can like ruminate on it for the rest of the year. Like, oh my goodness, I've got like 4 months before I've got to do that 2 hour thing. I mean, I know that sounds completely nuts, but you get used to having things that you're ruminating about. So if you have been ruminating all your life about how you were, you know, bullied by, I don't know, your dad or something, who constantly said cutting remarks thinking he was funny when he really was not, and you keep thinking about that, you can replace that rumination with ruminations about, oh, I might go and do this type of volunteering. This is, I swear, one of the reasons why, for me, traveling makes such a huge impact in my life. And basically, everybody who knows me knows that if I have a trip planned, no matter how far out it is, I am just um, in a better mental state. I'm more pleasant. And I mean, I know that sounds really, but like seriously, like I'm like not as grumpy and depressed and glum, because I can sit there and think about going on whatever trip. Now, again, I have the type of um, avoidant personality disorder where being around strangers makes me feel more comfortable. For somebody who is not the type that is, you know, that, ugh. Sorry, I've got to like get over the idea because it seriously gives me the ick what I'm about to say. I mean, if you're the type where being around your family actually makes you feel more comfortable than something like, say, a wedding, horrible to me, or like a big family party or something like that. Um, you know, if once a year you have to go do this thing with your family, but you feel comfortable being with your family and like watching them interact, and they let you stay in the back and watch, that might be great. that might be the type of thing you can sit and think about, not throwing the party, not being a part of the party, but participating as a wallflower at this party or whatever. You could find a physical outlet, like some sort of like sports workout thing. Um, Again, did I have my diagnosis? I think I did. I think I'd had my diagnosis at that point. Um, when I basically when it really came to a head, dealing with my family, my parents who were ill, and my son who was going through adolescence and had a lot going on in his life. I don't like exercising per se. I like having done exercise, but I don't like doing it. I was doing half marathon training because it would get me out of the house for an hour to myself where I wasn't interrupted. It was boring running, but I got a break. And I mean, it took up a ton of time. And I'm not saying this like just try to like while away the time. Don't try to waste your time. Don't try to just sit and wait for life to pass you by. That is basically the opposite of what I'm saying. Because the thing is, if you're sitting there going, I used to spend all this time trying to convince myself to date somebody, anybody, to actually interact with people, and I used to spend all this time, being concerned about whether I was normal or whatever. And now I'm not, and I've got like nothing to do but stare at the walls. That's what I'm saying. Don't do that. And I'm sure I repeat myself a lot on this channel. But yeah, that's what it is that I'm sure before you got your diagnosis, before you realized you were a variation of normal, there's too many people in the world with this diagnosis for it to not be a type of normal. So before you thought you were normal, when you thought you had to behave in a certain way, and now all of a sudden you realize, okay, nope, you don't have to do that. You don't have to torture yourself. You don't have to force yourself. You don't have to become a square peg in a round hole. You can decide what to do with that extra time. And the thing is, your habit will be to do what you've always done in the past and what people have wanted you to do in the past, which is beat yourself up and criticize yourself for your lifestyle of quote unquote doing nothing. Yeah, whatever. No. Pick the things that you want to do and do them. But really, hobbies of some sort, whatever it is. I mean, I make these videos. First of all, making these videos. Hello. Um, Come on. I mean, I'm not making money off of them. It's a silly hobby. I have my silly little puzzle collection. Right now I'm doing an escape room thing. I like puzzles. I'm bad at them. I'm not horrible at them, but I'm not good at them. So whatever. Who cares? I read a lot of books. I try to be doing something physical in my life at some point. I have a collection of plants. My latest was my latest. Well, no, I get. Sorry, I just get this. I get flowers each year that are supposed to be annuals that I try to have extend beyond that. I think the longest I had them go was 5 years. Last year, they all died. So I had to get replacements for this year. But other than that, like long-term plant, the last one I got was a Monstera that is about 3 times as big as when I got it. Silly, absolutely silly. And of course, the cats, they're hobbies. They fill my time, and um, they it's not a replacement for having people in relationships, um, but it's filling my own life out so that because I don't have to have the space held anymore for people. And it's not like I don't interact with anybody. That's not what I'm saying either. But, if you're going to have major primary relationships in your life, then you have to hold space for them. You need to carve out a part of your life that they're going to fill. And I don't have to do that anymore. I can fill my life and fill myself up to the full extent of space that I would be able to have. I'm making this analogy. I'm not sure if it's making sense. But it's like there's sort of like categories of where you can have your attention and time. And if you don't have a person in there and you didn't have the diagnosis and you're thinking that you quote unquote should be, average, normal, whatever, there should be a person there. Well, there isn't a person there. So all these other categories that you could spend your time in and etc., you can expand them. And the thing is that things will expand to fill the space as much as they can. So like you might get overextended at work just because it's possible for you to work because you don't have to spend the time with a person. Okay, maybe you love work. Maybe it's the best stuff that you got going on in your life. You absolutely can't wait to go. Me, I feel very strange on my days off. And I need my days off. I need my days off. But I feel weird not doing anything for work on my days off. I'm just really used to working. It's just really strange to me to not work on my days off. And so if I wasn't going okay, and actually I have a boss that's like, you work too much. You're definitely taking days off. But otherwise, yeah, you know what? I probably would work 7 days a week just because that's my habit until I was so burnt out and I was losing my mind. Haven't I already lost my mind? Anyway, so that's what I'm saying. Once you've accepted your diagnosis and you're not mourning and you're not spending the time beating yourself up over it, you're not spending the time researching what avoidant personality disorder is, you're not mourning the life that you used to have. Then you can decide what to do to fill all that extra time. And I suggest hobbies. Something cool. And don't beat yourself up for that. I used to I used to get crap from my mother. Because I had this hobby. Every once in a while I go back to it. I mean, it was like literally award winning. And let me tell you, she bitched at me every time that she saw me doing it, told me I was wasting my time, and yet every time I completed it, a new project and won another award, the ones that won the awards, she would take them and she would keep them and display them in her house. I actually have none of them displayed in my house. These award-winning projects of mine, I have them there, like in the closet. Yeah. So don't listen to anybody telling you if that your hobbies are not worthy or whatever. But if you don't feel good about the hobbies that you're doing or they're taking up too much time, again, you do control that. You can do something else. So if it's just a time suck that's numbing you because you don't want to face the fact that this is the life you have, I mean, that's actually still part of the mourning stage and the fighting stage. And you haven't gotten to the acceptance stage. Once you've gotten to the acceptance stage, you're going to say, yes, this is this thing that I really like to do. I like to play this game. But I'm not going to play it 12 hours a day. I'm going to play it an hour and a half a day because that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to do this other thing too and fill up that time. And that's cool. And that's good. And I'm repeating myself, I think. And I'm really talking forever. So I'll end this for now. But that's what I have to say about it. That once you've accepted the diagnosis, then you have time that you can fill doing what you want to do.